Good morning. Welcome to 11.4 Compare Weights. We're on page 481, 481, 481. So you see that the boy is holding two objects. Today we're going to look at the picture, compare the weights of the two objects he is holding. Use the words heavier than, lighter than, or about the same weight to describe the weights. Trace the circle around the lighter object. Trace the X on the heavier object. So when you're talking about these objects and you're comparing them, please make sure on Seesaw that you're talking to Mrs. Kane and Mrs. Hall, using the words heavier than, lighter than, or about the same weight. So we're going to look at these. And it wants us to describe them. So he has a little object in this hand that looks like a little block that says the number 1, and a book in this hand. And you can see he's holding the block a little higher than he's holding the book. So we're going to trace the circle around the lighter object. Usually when something's lighter, they put their hand up higher because it's not weighing it down. So because he's holding the block higher, that must be the lighter object. So we're going to circle the block. And then it says trace the X on the heavier item. And because his hand is going lower, that usually tells us that this object is a heavier object. So we're going to go ahead and trace the X over the book. Very good. Let's go ahead and turn to page 482. 482. Now in this section, we have an object that we're going to look at, and then we're going to work across. So we're looking that there's a hand that says left above this section, and then we see a hand that's in the right on this section. So we're going to act like this object over here is in our left hand, and then these objects are in our right hand one at a time. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at our directions. It says, find the first object in a row. Hold it in your left hand. Find the rest of the objects in a row and take turns holding each one of the objects in your right hand. Trace to show the object that is heavier than the object in your left hand. Circle the object that is heavier than the object in your left hand. So we're going to go ahead, that's for number 2, excuse me. So number 1, we're going to trace to show the object that is heavier, and then we'll move on to circling. So here in our left hand, we have a pair of scissors. And if you can think about the scissors from our classroom or scissors that you might have at home, you can put them in your left hand if you have them nearby, or you can think about what we used to work with. Then you want to put a paper clip in your right hand. Is a paper clip heavier or lighter than? Yeah, that's right. It's light. It's very light in your hand. You can move your hand super high up in the air because it's super light. So that's not heavier than the scissors. So we're not going to put anything around there. Then we have a book in our right hand now. Is a book heavier than or lighter than? Or about the same as scissors? Yeah, it's much heavier. If you think about your math book that we had in our cubbies, or if you have a book at home, those are much heavier than scissors. So we're going to go ahead and trace that circle or square around our book. And then we can also look at our rubber band. And our rubber band is lighter than our scissors. So we're not going to put a circle around that one. Now for number 2, it says circle the object that is heavier than the object in your left hand. So we have a notebook in our left hand right now. And we're going to find something that's heavier in our right hand. So we have a backpack, a cube, and a pencil. Which one of these 3 would you say would make your hand go down to the floor being heavier than a notebook? Would it be a backpack that has stuff in it, a cube, or a pencil? Good. It's the backpack that's full of things for school. That would definitely be heavier. Now number 3 says, circle the object that is lighter than the object in your left hand. So you have a marker in your left hand. And we want to know which one of these 3 items is lighter. Which one's going to make your hand go in the air? So is it going to be a notebook? Is it going to be a paper clip? Or is it going to be a jug of paint? Which one is lighter of these 3 than a marker? Great. It is that paper clip. It's like a feather. Super light. Very good. And number 4, it says, circle the object that is lighter than the object in your left hand. So we see an eraser in our left hand, and we want to know, is a marker that we use for our 10 frame lighter than the eraser? Is a stapler lighter than the eraser? Or is a tape dispenser lighter than an eraser? Awesome, good job. That marker that we use for our 10 frame game, that is lighter than an eraser. Excellent. Let's go ahead and move on to page 483. 483. And up here in this blank space for number 5, it says, find a book in the classroom or your home and find a classroom object that is lighter than the book, or again, something from your home. Then it says, draw it in the workspace. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to find a book in the classroom. So I'm going to just draw a book. And we can make it look like it has pages, okay? So there's my book from the classroom. Find a classroom object that is lighter. So if I think back to our classroom, what would be lighter than a book, our math book from our cubby? I'm going to go with our pencil. So this pencil is going to be much lighter than this book. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my pencil. And usually the pencil says number 2, just like this, a big number 2, just like this pencil. Very good. Number 6 says, find a classroom object or something in your house that is heavier than the book. Draw it in the workspace. So again, I'm going to draw my book that I have from my classroom or from your home and make it look like it has pages. And I now need to think back to our classroom. What would be heavier than a book? Yeah, our chair that we sat in. That's a great idea. Good job. Chair. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that chair, and I could put a little extra backing on it because we had a good back. And there's 4 legs in a chair, so we'll draw it like that. Excellent. Our chair was heavier than a book. Good job. When you are done, please turn the page to page 484. 484. And in this great big space for number 7, it says draw to show what you know about comparing the weights of 2 objects. Tell a friend about your drawing. So you need to tell Mrs. Kane and Mrs. Hall on Seesaw about the drawing that you do for number 7. So we're drawing to show what we know about comparing the weights of 2 objects. So you can draw an object and then a lighter object and talk about it, or you can draw an object and then draw a heavier object and talk about it, or you can draw an object and an object that's about the same weight. So I'm looking right at my water bottle. I'm going to go ahead and draw my water bottle first. I'm going to draw my water bottle. And I have a little handle up here for my water bottle. So my water bottle is pretty heavy when it's filled up. It's heavy even when it doesn't have water because it's an aluminum water bottle. So I know that that's pretty heavy. And if I am looking in my house, I'm going to think about something that is lighter than a water bottle. And it just so happens I'm thinking about a fork. So if I draw a fork that's in my house, that looks more like a pitchfork for a farm, but if I draw a fork and I think about it in my kitchen, that fork is lighter than my water bottle. So I'm going to say the fork is lighter than my water bottle. Or I can flip it around and say the water bottle is heavier than my fork. Have fun with math today. Bye.